That's right. But we've got our technologist, Matt Dickerson, on the phone. How you doing there, Matt?
I'm going very well, thanks. Don't talk about McDonald's. I'll start to get hungry waiting for breakfast.
We do every morning.
Oh, well, I won't tell you about their new Wagyu burger then.
Oh, okay. Don't mention it, please.
No, let's talk tech. Let's start out with our phone charger. It's changing, basically. Like more and more places, we just want to be able to put our phone down and have it, well, not run out of battery.
Yeah, that's right. And it is a bit old. Yesterday, having to plug in a phone, like who wants to do that anymore? So wireless charging has been the thing for a while. But now it's getting to the stage where we don't actually want to have to sit it on top of anything in particular. We just want to sit it on the desk, sit it on a bit of furniture, and it'll start charging. So there's been a bit of furniture that's been coming out lately. You can buy a desk, you can buy some shelving with wireless charging built in, which sounds fantastic. But I don't necessarily want to have to go and buy a whole new desk or buy new furniture to be able to do it. So a new product's coming out that you can actually mount it underneath any desk that you've got already, anything that you've got that's between 8 and 23 millimetres in thickness and not made of metal, obviously. It's got to be made of plastic or wood. And you stick this thing underneath it and automatically that turns the area above it into a wireless charger. Now, some people might say, well, that's fine. You can take a good old-fashioned normal wireless charger and just stick it underneath something. Unfortunately, most wireless chargers have got to be very close to the phone to actually charge. So if you stick it underneath something with a gap of that thickness of your desk, for example, it's not going to work. This device is designed specifically to work with the magnetic field above the actual unit itself. So again, it won't work right on top of it. It has to be at least 8 millimetres above, but 8 to 23 millimetres is that sweet spot. So quite cleverly done. I've seen some people who go and use the normal wireless charger and they route out a hole underneath their desk and make it very thin and put it underneath there. But you only need to lean on those a bit and suddenly you're going through the desk, literally. These are designed to just leave the desk exactly as it is, double-sided tape, stick it underneath, and then you've got a little thing. The biggest challenge you've got is finding where on your desk to sit the phone to actually get that wireless charging.
So do you have to put your phone directly on top of it? You can't put it anywhere around?
Pretty much, yes. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but sometimes people put a little dot on the desk, or maybe a little X, maybe a little pen mark that their partner mightn't be real happy about, but somewhere you just need to vaguely get it in the right spot. It's got a reasonable range there, but it's not going to be 10 centimetres away from it, but a few centimetres around that area will be fine.
Well, to be honest, we're habitual creatures anyway. Like the keys go in the same place, your wallet goes in the same place, so it wouldn't be too much of an issue, really.
No, it's not, but it does look like magic. When you just say to some kids that come along, I'm going to make this phone charge, and you sit the phone in the right spot and then wave your hands around and it starts charging. There is the old saying that between...
You've only got till the age of 3 these days. They know what's going on by then.
That's right. So I can't use it on you and Sarah?
I'm impressed.
Hey, Matt, you are a big advocate for electrical vehicles. You know everything there is to know that is going on with them. At the moment, the big question is distance. And I think this is paramount for Australia because we do have big distances between places. So this is what it's all about. Now, you're saying that Lucid Air is giving Tesla a bit of a run for their money.
Yeah, Tesla have been the leader in range for a long time and everyone wants to measure themselves up against Tesla. Well, Lucid Air, and you can't buy a Lucid Air yet. They've had about $10 billion invested in Lucid Air so far, and they've got some prototypes out there and their cars will be on sale soon, but their latest vehicle that they've announced has got over 800 kilometres of range. Now, the longest range Tesla at the moment is only about 650 kilometres. So 800 kilometres, people get that and they go, wow, I could drive Dubbo to Sydney and then back to Dubbo again when we can drive again, of course, and that would all do it on the one charge. That sounds fantastic. Now, this range is rated by the EPA in America, and they're normally not too bad in terms of the range, so they've officially rated it at 836 kilometres. There's another standard that usually is a bit more generous than that, so the EPA is usually the tougher standard, so if they can get 836 Ks from the EPA, then that's pretty good. Now, don't expect to pick up one of these cheaply, and again, they're not in Australia yet, they're not even in America yet, but they won't be too far away from being in America. But the first version that's got this sort of range, you're paying around US $169,000. So by the time that comes to our shores, I don't expect it to be under maybe $230,000 when it gets here. So it's not cheap to get that sort of range. The main way they achieve that range is a 113 kilowatt hour battery. So the largest battery I've got in mind, the largest battery Tesla makes, is a 100 kilowatt hour battery. So they've gone to a larger battery, but they also claim, of course they do, that their motors are better and more efficient than the Tesla motors, which is how they get that extra range as well as having that larger battery. But this is the battleground. This is where it will all be in electric cars as we go forward. The battleground will be range.
Well, the battleground for me is price. I love my Subaru. Don't get me wrong. So I think that was around about 30,000, pretty much brand new. But when are we going to start seeing electric vehicles in the price range of the new family? Around about the 25 to 35,000 mark.
Yeah, you're getting closer at the moment. You're getting about 40,000 is the cheapest one in Australia at the moment. The MG's got a SUV for $40,000. There's a range in that sort of $40,000 to $70,000. There's a new Hyundai that's just been announced around that $70,000 mark. So that seems to be the area that they're focused on. And again, it does come down to the battery. The price of the battery is really what pushes those up. So when you look at the total cost of ownership, the running cost of electric vehicle, I actually did a comparison between a $50,000 EV and a $30,000 ICE, and the $50,000 EV was slightly cheaper if you drove on average 14,000 kilometres a year. If you drove more than that, it started to become even cheaper to own that EV. So if you ignore the ticket price and actually look at the total cost of ownership, because they're very cheap to run, they're very cheap to refuel, then it actually starts to become a reasonable equation.
Well, it's going to be pretty useful when we can drive around again, like you said, but COVID is a big thing at the moment, and there's a new way that we're going to be testing for COVID.
Yeah, that's right. There's a fair bit of testing going on at the moment, and the Victorian government is behind this one, where they've said it's all well and good to have a test whether you've got COVID or not. We've all been familiar with that and the very pleasant way that testing is done. But what they want to know is if you've had COVID, for example, or if you've had the vaccine, do you have immunity to the virus? So some of this testing they're working on at the moment doesn't focus on yes or no you've got it, focuses on your blood and whether or not you've actually got the immunity built up. And one of the things there is that the immunity can be built up by the vaccine, but the vaccine effectively tricks your body into thinking that you've had the virus, therefore build up some antibodies. So if you've actually had COVID-19 as well, then you've got some of that immunity built up in your bloodstream as well. So for someone that's already had it, asking them to go along and get vaccinated, otherwise they can't go into a restaurant, there would be a logical argument for them to say, well, hold on, I've already had the virus itself. I've obviously got antibodies in my system already built up. I don't need that vaccine. And that's where this testing is really focused on. It'll be a blood prick test rather than a stick something up the back of your nose so it comes out the back of your brain test. And then that blood test will actually show whether you've got the immunity built up, whether that be via vaccine or by having had the virus in the first place.
Does this have the potential, this kind of reverse thinking, changing the way we look at vaccinations? Hey, let's go and see how our immunity is at the GP. You know what? Maybe we should give you a bit of a booster.
Yeah, and that's exactly right as well. There is some talk that maybe March next year, I was talking to a doctor last night about exactly this scenario. March next year may be a time that we may be looking at a booster. Now, that booster may be the same vaccine that we've been given at the moment, or it may be a slight variation on that. To know accurately what we might need, to know accurately whether a booster's needed, what immunity we've got built up, it's a bit of guesswork at the moment. Oh, it's a few months since you've had that last one, Dan, we might give you another bit of a booster. Whereas this type of testing would be more accurate and would say, yes, you've got X number of antibodies, a certain number of antibodies per million parts or something like that it might be. So you've got the immunity built up, you don't need the booster, or yes, you do, especially to this new variant because you don't have antibodies built up for that.
Well, the future really is now. I really like having these tech talks. You learn a lot of new things. Thank you, Mathew Dickerson, for chatting tech talk with us today.
Thanks, Sarah.